What do you want to grow up and become? My teacher asked me this one morning when we were in school. I remember all around me, these voices filled the room. Somebody said doctor, engineer, lawyer, all crisp and conventional answers. And then there was me. I sat there very hesitant and I raised my hand and I said, I want to help people. There was a long pause. And like all schools, kids around me, they giggled. I felt embarrassed because maybe my answer was not conventional. Maybe because it was too simple. Maybe it wasn't too ambitious. But even at 13, while I was embarrassed, I did not regret it. I knew even back then that it was not a title I was chasing. It was the impact that I wanted to leave behind. To be honest, I wasn't confident. I was painfully shy. When my teacher approached me for my first ever debate, I remember preparing for it like my life depended on it. I spent my entire night preparing my argument in front of the mirror with my friends, with my teachers, over and over and over again. And then the day came. I was in the auditorium, just like this one. I went up on stage under those bright spotlights in front of an entire auditorium full of students. I froze. Words just disappeared. My heart panicked. My mouth went dry. I did not know what to do. And what did I do after that? I walked off, red like a tomato. It crushed me. Not because of the debate, but because I thought I was not made for more. That night, I remember going back to my dorm room and absolutely breaking down. And trust me, breaking down is me sugarcoating it. It was way worse. But then something small and life changing happened. The same teacher who had given me this first chance came up to me. She smiled at me and she said, the bravest thing to do is to just show up. And so I did, over and over and over again. Confidence, I learned, isn't a switch I could turn on. It was a muscle that I needed to build one hard moment at a time. And I exactly did that. And then came another life-changing moment, this national debate. This debate would not just put me on the map for my school, but at a national level. I was terrified. A hall full of the best young debaters from the country. And here was I, still haunted by that memory of that frozen debate. But this time, I had something more than fear. I had consistency. The debate went on, it got over, the speakers came, they spoke, my nerves settled. And now the time came for the results. And for some reason, that hopelessness, it still loomed around me. And then they announced, Best Speaker, Raghav Mutneja. And believe you me, I froze again. But this time for a very different reason. It wasn't about me knowing that I had won. It was about me knowing that I had crossed a mountain which I once thought was impossible. Time went on, school got over, and I went to the US for college. A new country, new challenges, new culture. My first semester, I remember, my first major assignment, I almost failed it. I was in shock because while growing up, I had been this bright student, the way we like to call it. And once again, doubt crept back in. Maybe I don't belong here. But then again, I decided to show up because that is what consistency is. I started to show up for office hours. I started to ask questions even when I felt they were silly. I started joining group discussions even when my accent felt different. And soon, friendships deepened. My grades improved, my confidence grew. Not because I was fearless, but because I was consistent. But consistency, I've realized, it did not come in the form of academics and debates. It slowly turned into this quiet rebellion, even from the ones that were closest to home. There were moments, long ones, when I thought I was building alone. When the people closest to me did not understand what I was trying to do. When support came from strangers rather than those at the dinner table. Emotionally, it was hard. There were days when I thought that I was having to prove myself to the very people I expected only encouragement from. But like all journeys in life, not all journeys begin with cheerleaders. Some journeys begin in silence, but they must begin nonetheless. And so I did that. I started to show up, first for myself and eventually for others. When time came to build something of my own, I thought back to that 13-year-old boy who was uncertain and shy, the one who wished somebody would have believed in him. And that is why I decided to build advisors, not just as a business, but as a promise to all the students who felt lost, unheard, or unsure about their future. Let me give you an example. I remember the student that I worked with 2 years ago, Nandini. I met her in Delhi at a workshop. She was extremely bright, full of ideas, and yet she was weighed down by self doubt and financial limitations. She thought that she could not study abroad. I talked to her and understood what was the reason. She told me her parents always questioned her. Because she was a girl, they asked her why aim so high. Such statements and less belief from the family broke her. Her dreams gave away, and she was deep into despair and hopelessness. We started to work together. She started to show up. We started to look at the ambition in her eyes, the determination on her face, the red notebook she had, and she used to note down everything. And I saw her show up day after day, milestone after milestone, week after week. And soon, applications, essays, practice interviews, she cracked it. Today, Nandini is studying at one of the world's top universities with a full ride scholarship. I did not hand her this success. This was not because of me. It was primarily because of Nandini, because she had the belief just long enough to get through the door that she could make it. I've realized as I've grown in life that consistency can really help us a lot. Moreover, when I was building advisors, I came across multiple challenges, and none of it has been linear. Not my victories, not my growth, not even the moments when I felt that I was getting along somewhere, that things were right. In the beginning, there were early wins. There were collectively good moments, there was momentum, and things just felt right. And then, all of a sudden, without any warning, just like everything in life, things started to stall. I would sit down in frustration and wonder, but I'm doing everything right. I am following the book. Why isn't everything working? This is the part nobody tells you. Even consistency can feel thankless at times. But you show up. You continue to show up, even though you're the work you're putting in, and even though you're showing up and things do not move, you still show up. Imagine me. There was a moment when I thought that stepping near a stage will almost be impossible, and I will never do it in life, let alone that becoming my profession. Imagine, my biggest fear in life ended up becoming my job description. That's exactly what happened. And today, whenever life throws me a challenge, or I feel I stumble, I doubt, or even I fall, the same doubt, remember my old friend that you're not good enough? It comes back creeping to me. But now with time, I've learned a simple and unwavering answer. I'm here and I'm still showing up. Consistency, I've realized, does not just award you with, in silence and confidence. For me, when I was building advisors, it started off with a few students and a few thousand rupees, trust me. Today, it's a multi-million dollar venture. We have worked with over 1,000 students across 4 continents, many of them making their way to the world's top universities. But I didn't do it just because I was always sure of myself. I was able to do it because I kept showing up for my students, for myself, and I passed on the same value to them. But did I do it alone? Like everything in life, you cannot do everything alone. My wife, she's sitting right here in the audience. I think she saw a side in me which I hadn't seen yet. She challenged me to value myself, what I could do, not what I could produce. She stood by me not just on the sides, but she helped me stand taller. You know, some people in life, they just don't stand on the sidelines. They lift the entire field. And that's exactly what I had. And I've been extremely lucky, I feel. Consistency can also come in different ways. For example, it does not need to be this great viral moment or a big goal. It can be something very small. For me, it is something as simple as reading news in the morning. Sounds very easy, right? How does that help? Well, this small habit, it keeps me grounded and it keeps me sharp, not just for my students, but even for myself. This is the habit that I want to inculcate. Small habits tend to have way more bigger effects into the future. But at the end of it all, through everything that I've achieved and my journey, one thing has remained at the center, my dream. Remember in the beginning? Helping people. And now, while I was going through my journey, I realized something very important. Every small effort that I was making had these ripples forward. Remember, every small action that I took, even in your case, every small step, every decision you make, the choices you make, every time you show up, every time you give yourself that second chance, you are creating that echo for the future. That is why I call this my echoes of tomorrow. Think about it. The first frozen debate, that silence, that echoes today in every workshop I lead. The giggles of my friends who were laughing at me when I said I want to help people, that moment echoes today when my student comes up to me and says, "Sir, I got in. Thank you." It's consistencies like this that will allow these echoes to help you in the future. If I could go back in time and talk to that same 13-year-old, that uncertain kid who was extremely shy, I would not give him a map because life doesn't give us one. I would simply go up to him and tell him, "You do not need to be perfect. Just keep showing up, be consistent. You have no idea the echoes that you're making and the impact they will have in the future." For those of us who are listening to me today, think about it, continue to put in that effort, continue to show up. Because it's these small echoes that are going to help somebody else begin their own journey. If you are brave enough to begin today, that might just end up becoming an echo for somebody else to gain the courage to start their own journey. And that is why, in the future, just like I feel it today, you will look back one day and realize the quietest steps, the ones that went unnoticed, the quietest steps you took have echoed the loudest.